Hello everyone, I am Crawlers and I just want to say something here on the very sore and already beaten to death subject of suppression. Now, I know this particular issue has been in the talks about a week ago, and I'm kind of late with this to the party. To the party, uh, but I'll just try to go through it as best I can, and give you a couple of my ideas on what suppression should be. Now, although this mainly concerns Battlefield 4 suppression right now, I do have this hardline footage in the background because at the time I had no Battlefield 4 footage, and frankly because suppression isn't limited to Battlefield 4 either. I mean, hardline has also has it in the game and expresses it a little bit differently than Battlefield 4, but the concept still applies, I think. Now, this has been a sore subject in Battlefield 1 that's been loudly argued since Battlefield 3, I believe, or indeed Suppression Field 3. In Battlefield 4, things continue in the same more or less nonsensical try everything and see if it fits fashion, mainly because DICE is, as usual, acting unilaterally and, not listening to the feedback from the community, instead trying random approaches themselves. Well, DICE has a long history of unpopular decisions, I think, that they've made without listening to the community, and very unfortunately, because people are starting to feel a bit powerless here. More to the point, this last bumbling attempt yet again to rework suppression in CTE by DICE, never mind that it is the very goddamn last thing that needs reworking right now, in my opinion, at this point in time, when we're still dying around corners, having one-shot kills, one-shot deaths, and the shotguns are still broken, and so on. DICE, for some reason, decided to attack it, to attack suppression, to rework it. And what they introduced was a system that could only have been dreamt up by a madman, in my opinion. Now, granted, they've since scaled back on these things that I'm about to read to you, on these amounts, variables, since this was about a week ago already, and since then, at least one CTE patch has already come out. But, strangely enough, they haven't given up on this altogether, however ridiculous it might seem. Now, what DICE did was, they implemented a suppression model that gradually, as you are suppressed more and more, that is, from a value of 0 to 100, changes your gun handling mechanics, basically fucking up your vertical recoil and your first shot multiplier and your spread and such, so much so that the guns more or less become random and unpredictable under suppression. Now, there's a million things wrong with this approach, and I'll try as best as I can to explain why. Okay, first of all, this introduces an element of randomness into the gun handling mechanics, which, would make any sort of aimed fire impossible, which in turn makes any kill under suppression a game of chance. And this just cannot be a factor in any FPS game, particularly one that claims to be competitive. Now, another thing that no suppression mechanic should ever change is the way weapons handle. Now, in real world, this would translate into you not being able to keep your gun steady if someone was shooting at you, as if you suddenly, lost your strength or pissed your pants out of being scared. Well, there's a couple of things wrong with this idea. First of all, assuming the game goes to some great lengths to simulate realism, this is the opposite of realism, because since these soldiers that get, fired at are actually trained to disregard bullets whizzing by their ears and not actually wet their pants while this happens. So in effect, the exact opposite should happen. These people are composed and prepared for war, and have had live rounds fired over their heads in training. So what DICE is trying to simulate here just isn't a thing. Another idea that some people come up with to explain this is adrenaline. Well, when you're being shot at, and because your adrenaline spikes, it makes your hands shake, they say. Well, again, this is just not true. Adrenaline makes you temporarily, hopped up on, well, it's like Nuka-Cola, right? You temporarily get a boost of speed and strength because, the body is getting ready for fight or flight. So you need that temporary boost of speed and strength. So if anything, it should work the other way, making you more focused and actually shoot better, and making you temporarily stronger even. So I have a couple of my own ideas of what suppression should be in an FPS game, and I'll try to explain here, because I think removing suppression completely from a game such as this is not at all a good idea, because you need some sort of in-game cue to tell you that you're being shot at. Now, in the real world, what we think of suppression is really a visceral thing, pun intended, that kind of makes you feel that someone is shooting at you, and it makes you want to, keep your head down and move away from that spot. Now, in the real world, there is a technique called the cracked thump, which refers to the idea that when someone is shooting at you from a distance, you actually hear two distinct sounds very close to one another. The first, or crack, is the sonic boom or the impact of the bullet as it passes by your head and impacts something near you, and then a couple of seconds later, depending on how far off the shot was made from, actually the thump, or the actual sound of the rifle shot making its way over to you, now trained people can estimate the distance to the shooter by calculating the delay between the two sounds, but in a game such as Battlefield 4, that is mostly impossible to replicate, and quite ridiculous to even consider in such an environment, where instead of one individual shot, you get 10 people shooting at you non-stop from 10 different sides. So as far as any game goes, things have to be interpreted in order for it to work in the game environment and still be fun enough that you want to play that game. So what could be a suitable model for suppression, you say? Well, it's difficult to get right, because in a game environment, really, it's just it's kind of like car physics in a racing simulation that are hard to get right, because you're not actually there, you're not actually feeling the road through your steering wheel and through your seat, and you're not actually feeling the G-forces pull you out of your seat on the turns. So it becomes a very difficult mechanic to simulate in games such that it is, still fun to play, but at the same time gives you a sense of realism. So what I think should happen is, I think Hardline has got it flat out wrong, frankly, where your field of view sort of closes to a narrow tunnel, and your eyes start to sort of close on you and, right down to a black void, where you can't see anything. And, as I've said several times, gun mechanics also cannot be changed. So what's left, right? Well, the sight and sound is left. I think as far as the visual effect of suppression goes, it should create a gradual blur, again scaled with the amount of suppression you receive, to the point where the whole screen is blurred, and I even want to take it one step further. Make the suppression blur a cone of in the game environment where it actually comes out of the gun, so to speak, and spreads out a little bit, and blurs your screen only if you are looking at it directly. So if you're facing away from the point of suppression, let's say an MG or something that's firing at you, then you're not experiencing it at all, or indeed very little. Another thing suppression should not affect is medkits, I think. Only taking damage should affect medkits, actually giving out health. So if you take damage, and the healing, should stop for a couple of seconds, and then should resume if you don't take new damage. But I digress. Suppression should also affect sound, I think. I think a disorienting sound effect should be applied, something where you sort of become shell-shocked is, well, the best way that I can describe it. All other sounds, need to become very, very quiet and sort of far away, like you're hearing them through a pillow or at the end of a tunnel. But bullet impact sounds and maybe suppression sounds of bullets whizzing by should be amplified. So kind of like, another interesting idea I read is in the comments is that the suppression also takes out your 3D spotting for while being suppressed. I'm not sure how this would work in the game and if it would be fun enough, and not sure, but CTE is definitely the place to test it. So thanks for watching. Please rate and share this video as it helps my channel grow. Check out my other videos at the end of this one, and remember, in Soviet Russia, YouTube subscribes you.